Now, Phoenix Kendo Kai will be showing us Kendo, a traditional style of Japanese sword play that has been practiced for hundreds of years, ever since feudal Japan. Enjoy the show!
どうだったでしょうか。選ぶのに大変でしたね。1位の方おめでとうございます。衣装が終わっていましたね。次はフィンケンド会にロールケンドです。ケンドは日本の保健サイドからあった長い歴史があるものです。各人をご覧になってください。
Kendo means the way of the sword and is a modern Japanese sport and martial arts. They use bamboo swords and protective armor.
次はフィンケンド会にロールケンドです。ケンドは剣の道であり、剣道具と機内を使っての格技とはをご覧になってください。Please be quiet, you guys. Try to keep the volume low. Thank you.
Oh, shit. I'm never recording.
Hello, my name is Adrian, and we are the Phoenix Kendo Kai, and we will be providing a demonstration of Kendo. Kendo is a martial art, and the translation is Japanese sword fencing.
Thank you.
One of the things that distinguishes Kendo from its Western counterpart is that Western fencing, also sometimes called Olympic fencing, is made with a stabbing sword. Kendo, as a Japanese fencing, the Japanese used the katana, which was a type of broadsword, it was a curved broadsword, and a broadsword is a cutting sword and not a stabbing sword. So for people that are familiar with fencing, one of the things you'll notice almost right away is the differences between Western fencing and Olympic fencing. For example, one of the things that you will see with our demonstration of kirikaishi, which is an opening exercise which is done in every Kendo dojo, is that the Kendo sword is gripped with two hands as opposed to one. The sword is a heavier sword than a rapier or a stabbing sword, which is held with one hand. You will also notice the full body posture. We do not turn from the side to hide behind the sword. We hold the sword at the center and keep a fighting distance clear or a fighting space in front of us clear. So you will notice the full body posture and you'll notice a two-handed grip. One of the things that also makes us slightly different is that you'll notice that we yell a lot. And one of the things that we're yelling about is that Kendo is what we call an intentional sport. And that is, I have to tell everybody what I intended to do if I hope to get a point. So for example, if you go to Olympic fencing, you'll see various people yelling touche, but they don't actually have to yell it when they're stabbing at someone. Whereas Kendo, I have to call my point. If I'm going for the men, which is the target that covers the head, I have to call men. If I'm going for kote, which is the cut to the wrist, I have to call kote. And if I go for do, the third point, which is a slash across the waist, I have to call do. Now, fortunately for me, I do not have to tell anyone what I intend to do before I do it. I just have to do it as I'm doing it, which makes it slightly easier for me. One of the things you'll also notice is that Kendo is loud because we also yell for other reasons, for example, to startle the opponent and see if we can catch him off guard. So, kirikaishi, an opening exercise done at different Kendo dojos. seems like I'm not paying attention to you, I apologize. It hurts when you fall off one of these things. Now, Kirikaishi is an opening exercise which is done at a dojo if you would be a person that was interested in practicing or learning about Kendo. But to give you some more information about what it is you're actually watching, one of the things that you will notice is similar to Western fencing, you will notice that the fencer is wearing gear. Our gear is called bogu, and that merely is a Japanese word that means equipment. For example, if you were studying the tea ceremony, you would have or use chado bogu, which basically means that would be the brush that you stir the tea or the bowl that you serve the tea in. Kendo bogu has 4 basic parts. This is the men, and this is cotton, and this is stainless steel or titanium. This is the mask, which protects the face and the shoulders. This is the dough. The dough is made with leather and fiberglass, and basically this protects the waist. This is the tade, and while there are no cuts below the waist, periodically people miss. And so having something over your hip bone is always very nice. And then this is the kote, and you notice this is a glove. We use what we call the Mickey Mouse style kote. We have a hand and we have a finger, and basically that's it. So Kung Fu grip here. And then what you'll notice also is, for competition purposes, one of the things you do is you identify your name and your dojo. And so during a competition, when somebody says so-and-so and so-and-so will be fighting next, the judge or the referee will just check the name and make sure that the match that is proceeding is the match which is expected to when they record the points. Now, all of the equipment is here to protect you from a shinai. Now, a shinai, which is a Japanese wooden practice sword, is actually a derivative of the katana, which is the Japanese cutting sword. And one of the things about the katana is that you will notice that it is a curved broadsword. The curved broadsword is not unique to Japan. For instance, the Polish Kosovares use a curved saber for horseback, and Arabic soldiers also used curved swords. The thing that is unique about the katana was the metallurgy that went into its making. What the metallurgist would do was after he would pound this to the width that he wanted, what he would do is he would do a double pitch coating. And then he would plunge the sword into cold water for a tempering process. The coating on the bottom was very thin, and so the blade would quench quickly and become a very sharp but brittle steel called martensitic steel. They cut the metal across the top, which had a double-coated pitch, would cool much more slowly, and it's called a pearlite form of steel. You can see in this particular sword, you'll see a slight blood groove. But on a real katana, what that would be is that would be the temper line between the 2 types of steel. The dull edge, which was the softer steel, then actually acted as a shock absorber for the hard surface cutting steel, which was on the other side. And so it was the metallurgy behind its manufacture which makes Japanese katana unique throughout the world. Now, obviously, if you're practicing fencing, one of the things you don't want to do is use a real sword on your friends. And so, as a practice sword, a curved wooden sword called a boken was developed. You will notice that it's about the same size in terms of length. It has a tsuba, or a sword guard, same as a real sword. And it's hard to see from the edge, but it does have curved on the bottom, a sharper curve on the bottom than it does on the top. And so by using the sword, what you could do is you could actually practice the manipulation of curving your enemy's sword away from you. Now, as you can expect, if anyone has ever had a baseball accident, it also hurts to have a wooden sword whack you in the back of the head. And so eventually, the boken was reserved for kata practice, in which forms, pre-arranged forms, which are agreed upon between the two participants of practice. But to do free-form practice, and Kendo is a free-form sport, which means both the attacker and the attackee can do whatever they choose. And what happens is that you have to be able to allow for certain things such as accidents happening. Fencing, or Japanese fencing, is limited in the points that it makes. You have 4 legitimate points. Okay, you have the men, which is the cut to the head, and you have the kote, which is the cut to the wrist, and you have the do, which is the cut to the waist. Now, one of the things that you'll notice about the cuts is that the shinai has a tip, which is called the kensai, and it has a leather marker, which is called the nakayui. And that particular distance represents the actual cutting edge of a sword. So what happens is that the different points, as you make them, you must very specifically, see, this is not a valid point because the attacker is trying to cut on a point on a part of the sword which isn't sharp. So the representational part of the shinai is the part which must be used for the 3 points, the kote, the men, and the do. There is a 4th point called the ski, and that is a stab. It's a stab to the throat. But given the danger in receiving it, not in doing it, but in receiving it, it is only done by black belts and above. Now, one of the things you may ask is, okay, so what good does it do me to learn a sport in which somebody stands there and let me hit them? Well, the truth is that the kihon that you see practice is just the introduction to learning the form associated with the 3 cuts. Now, the next thing you do is, the next level of training is what to do when your opponent doesn't open for you and let them hit them. And there are specific types of wazas that you do to actually move the shinai and clear what is called the offensive space between you and the opponent. So the harai, or the slash to the side, forces the shinai away just long enough for you to make your attack. The sureage, or what we call the crescent moon cut, moves the shinai, but it moves it from underneath instead of from the side. And the final of the basic offensive laws, this is called otoshi, which is actually trapping your opponent's shinai underneath your own. Now, notice that you don't specifically have to call the opening waza. For instance, you don't have to call harai men. The only thing you have to do is name the three point. The only thing that you have to call, or the only thing you have to state your intention for, is the kote, the men, or the do, which is the attacking points, or the ippon, the 1 point that you would be awarded in competition. Now,